So this is session 8 of Introduction to Data Science. So first of all, welcome all. I think we have one more session left before our exam. How excited are you guys? So far so good. Following through all the concepts of Python, I believe.
Yes.
Good. So how many attended the last week's trial day talks? Did anyone attend and do a summary? No?
No.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, that comes the homework topic. So we are still evaluating the homeworks. So the whole homework validation is not completed. So if you're not seeing your score, that's the reason. So we will update it as soon as possible. Okay. So sometime like Monday, Tuesday, you will see the scores. So sorry for the delay, but we are in progress of correcting the homework. Okay. All right. So I see a couple of folks who have joined. So we finished our quiz session. So not sure how you guys are going to take it now. So if you want, you could take it in our break time, like when we break for like 10 minutes, you could use that time to do the quiz. We will discuss the quiz answers at the end. Okay. So let's jump on to our session. So you have finished our quiz and our recap. So what did we see last week? We saw more about the other types of collections. In particular, we saw about dictionary and sets last week. And this week, we are going to see about the files. Okay. So far, you guys would have seen all programming about it, like where the user enters something and you do validation, or you do your programming all based on user inputs, right? But in real world, not all are like user inputs, right? So there are like integrations, like interfaces from one company to other, where you just send all your data as one file, and the other company has some program that reads and then processes, like bank or like employee data, your paycheck, your scores. It can be anything. Okay, so files is like an important topic. So I just thought I'll give an introduction to file processing here. So we'll see how deep we can go, but I wanted to introduce the concept of file processing. So we'll see about inputs, file, output file, also processing the files. Okay. So before saying files, in last week, I think I told you, right? So we have seen about different data types, and some are like closely overlapped on the other type. Like set and list are almost same except for one feature. Dictionary is almost in line with which one I think? Maybe tuples. No, dictionary is totally unique. I think tuple and list is almost same. So it's almost same but different, right? So I said like I will give you a comparison overview, just so an easy way of understanding the concepts, like a cheat sheet. So here is it. Okay. So this might not. I just googled and got this from like Python Learning. I just want to give credit to that. So this might not be the elaborate list, but at the high level, this was like a quite good illustration of like what are the key difference between different data types. So let's take a minute to go over that. Okay. So we are going to compare like string, list, tuple, set, and dictionary. So all these five are sequences, right? So string is a sequence of characters. So we have list, we have tuple, we have set, and dictionary. So these are all sequences. So we are going to see what each of them is. Okay. So in whole lot, string is immutable. What is immutable? Anyone?
Cannot be changed.
Cannot be changed. Correct. So string and tuple cannot be changed. Once it is created, it's just that. You could, however, modify and display it on screen or save it as a different, another variable, another string type, another data type. But that particular data type once created cannot be changed. Okay. Whereas list, set, dictionary is mutable. You could add, delete, remove, you could save. You have different functions. Okay. So the next one is ordered or unordered. Okay. So string, list, and tuples is ordered, meaning you could say like index 0 is this particular character, index 9 is this character. So that's how it's getting stored and that's how it is retrieved. They are ordered and indexed, like they have a unique number assigned to every element of it. But set and dictionary, they are not ordered. The way you key in may not be the way it's stored in memory. Okay, so it can be stored in any order. You never know which order it is. Then third one is duplicates. Okay, so set and dictionary does not allow duplicates. Set does not allow duplicate members. Like if you add apple 3 times, you will only see one apple in the set. Okay, for dictionary, it's different. The keys cannot be, the keys has to be unique. Okay, so because that's how you identify an element, right? That's how you retrieve it. So keys has to be unique, but the element as such can be, the value can be the same. Like you can have key 1, assign apple to it. Key 2, you can again assign apple, okay? But the key has to be distinct. Then the third one is like how to create an empty ones. So you just create double quotes or single quotes. You create a string. List is created by square brackets. Tuple is created by parentheses. You create a set using a keyword set. Okay, you use this keyword set parentheses. For dictionary, it is curly braces. So these are the different braces, or like how an element is defined. Okay. Then if it's a single element, this is how it looks like, right? Just H, this is one element. But here, within the whole square bracket, an element that is enclosed in enclosed in, what is that? Double quotes, that's an element. Okay. Here it's the same, but it's parentheses, and here it's set with a single item is like this, and dictionary with a single item is hello : 1. So here this is the value and this is the key. The next one, there's no value here, but for list, okay, list can store any data type, right? For string, it has to be string. That's it. That you cannot have a combination. For list, it can be the list elements can be of any data type. It can be string, set, tuple, int, dictionary, okay, or another list in itself. For tuples, the same. It can be a string, list, set, tuple, int, and dictionary. Almost all data types. For set, it can only be an integer, string, or a tuple. It cannot be any of these. For dictionary, there is 2 items here. The key can only be integer, string, or tuple, but the values can be any item. So the list can be a value inside of a dictionary. So these are the key unique differences, or like key comparison between all the data types. Just like we have seen this in elaborate in like every session, but this is like in one pager where you could kind of visualize and remember, understand how each data type is different. Any questions? Okay. Cool. So now let's go to our today's session. Okay. So like I said, we are going to talk about files. Okay. To understand the logic of files, okay, so we'll just take a step back and see like why file is needed. Okay. So forget about file. So today you have a program, right? So for every program that you have written, so what do? You ask the user to enter the data, correct? So once the program finishes, if you have to run the program again, what do? You again ask the user to re-enter the data. So every time a program runs, the data has to be keyed in by the user. Okay. So now when that data is keyed in, where is the data stored when the program is processing? It is stored in RAM. Okay. So meaning like you refer it as a variable, right? You assign a variable to each element. Like if you have a variable name, age, mark, score. So these are all variables, correct? So all these variables are temporarily stored in RAM. So once the program finishes, it's just cleared off the memory. Understood? So that's how this whole programming works. So that's why when the program runs again, you have to again ask the user for inputs because we are not storing it anywhere, we are not referencing anywhere. Okay. So what if you need to access it? Like if you need data to be static, like you need data to be somewhere, some places. I don't want the user to enter like every time the data. I want the data to be stored somewhere so I could retrieve it when needed when the program is running. Then once the program finishes, I could safely tuck it away. It's not throw away. Okay, I'll just keep it somewhere. Then when again like I need the program to rerun, I could just go and get that data back. Where you can't do that in memory, right? So in memory you could use for like short term, like okay, like for your span of your program. Like if this program is going to run for like 10 minutes, yeah, you could store it. You imagine you're going to store every single data in memory. What's going to happen? First, you're not going to get that much of memory, right? You're going to use all your memory spaces, and that's quite expensive. So you imagine for a big company how much of memory you keep adding, right? So that's you know just keep on adding CPU to store all those data. So that's where this whole concept of file comes in. Okay. So what it does is, so what will happen is like when the program runs, right? So it will just have its own way of saving data and it will run on everything. So once the program is finished, we will save everything to a file. So the data that's needed will be saved to a file. Okay. So that file will be returned to a computer's disk and it can be just kept separate, or you could just store it somewhere. And once you need it, you just load that floppy disk. So you have seen floppy disk concept, you have seen CDs and all that stuff, right? So imagine that you have you have a CD. Okay, so it has all your data. You load the CD, then you just run the program. Once you're done, you just take it away, and then you put another CD that has a different program. Understood? So that's the file. Okay, so imagine something closer to that as a file concept. Okay. Any questions so far? So what is file? And am I confusing or like you guys following? I need an yes or no before I.
No,
No, as in not confusing.
not confusing.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So that is how this file is stored. So file is nothing but a data stored in some place, so where you could retrieve it and use it at a later point of time. So there are like many software packages, right? So all your Word documents that you use to write all this homeworks, right? So that is nothing but a Word. So those programs are used so that you could write it to use a letter, a memo, report. You could use that program to do so much thing. And once you're done, what you do, you just save it as a file. Okay. So you could use the same file and you could later open it, edit it, print it, or you could send it to someone. So you do so much things using that word processing. Similarly, image, right? So you all take your pics, right? You do selfies, you do all those things. So once you take your pictures, what do you do? Now we have so many editors, right? So you just use that editing programs to add filters, add funny faces, or like, add text, hi, hello. So you do all those graphical things and like, blur the unwanted faces in our pictures. So we do all those stuff. And what do you do with that pictures once it is done? You save it somewhere, right? You do a save as and save it in your local. So that save as is a file. So if you go plug your phone into your computer and look at the picture, it will be saved as maybe a JPEG, or like it will be stored as what PNF, PNG or something, right? So all those pictures are again a different set of data. Okay, we call it a picture, but it's again a data. Okay, then you have this Excel sheets. So how many of you have worked in Excel sheets? Should have, right? For your school or for other works, you would have seen that Excel, right? So what do? So spreadsheet programs, right? So they are mostly with like mostly used with numerical data where you need to apply mathematical formulas, and like if you have to do pivot grids, you could do so much with Excel. So that is again another program or another data that you key in, you do all that what you need to do, and then you save us so that you could use it at a later point of time. Another example is, what is another example for this kind of thing? Even if you take games, right? So even games is like that. So you have a list of players' name and everything. You have your score stored, everything. So once you log back again, you see all your statistics, right? You won, like you have finished this many laps in this much time, and like you have your opponent has finished this many laps in this much time. You are in number second place, he is in number third place. So all these statistics again are data that is stored in a file that's easy for you to retrieve. So anything and everything like you do in your computer, it's kind of a file saved somewhere. Okay, so that you could access it. But when you go and look into your memory, not all data that you process will be there. The data that you are currently using, like when you open your Word and you're typing something, so for that intermediate time, the Word will store whatever your data you're playing with in a memory. Okay, so once you close the program, that memory is cleaned and cleared, so that the memory is now free for the next set of program that you are going to load. But that doesn't mean the data is gone away, right? The data is packed neatly in that Word document and stored on your computer. Clear? Clear with file concept? I want you to understand this.
Yes.
Cool. So when we talk about file, right? So there is, let's talk about, so I've said like whenever you write it somewhere, right? So this is, let's imagine this is a disk, okay? So what happens is like when you do something, when you write, when you create a variable in your program, right? So what happens is like, so this is a disk. So when your memory runs, like when your program runs, this is how this is a memory block. So you have three variables. You have variable like pay, you have variable employee ID and employee name. Okay. So this is this pay rate, like this is hourly wage, $18 per week or per day, whatever. Then its employee ID is 7451Z and the name is Cindy. So when your program runs so far, any program that we have written till today, it's only up until this point. You have this variable, it is stored in your memory, your program will run, it will do whatever you want to do. Once your program finishes, this is gone. So now what we are doing is like, I want to save this data. So what that means is when how do you do, we'll see to that, okay? But what the concept of writing is, so all the data that is in this RAM is now copied to a file. So in the file, there will be a space allocated to store your variable, your employee ID, and your name. So it's copied from RAM to the file. Okay. So when you need to this here, right? This is called as file output because you are reading from your memory and writing it to a file. So this is a file output. So you could do the whole reverse thing too. Say you load your floppy disk, you load your CD, right? So now the data is there. Now you instruct your program to read your data from the CD that you loaded, from the file that you loaded. So now it will be the other way around. So the variable will be loaded from this disk. The employee ID will be loaded, from employee name will be loaded. So when you read from the file, this is called as input file because it is an input to your program. So output file is when your program writes to a file, it is called output. So two concepts, file, input file and output file. What is input file? When the data in a file is given as an input to a program. Okay, the program is going to read from that file and do whatever you ask to do. That is called input file. Output file, the reverse. Okay, so the program does so many logic calculation, whatever it does, and writes the output to a file. Instead of displaying it on screen, the output is going to be written on the file. That is called output file. Clear? Anyone clear doubts?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay. So far we have seen two keywords, right? So input file, output file. There is three more keywords that we will talk about. Okay. So open the file. So there is three more logic before we go deep into files. Okay. So one is open the file. Second is close the file, and the third is file processing. So we defined input file, we defined output file. So when your program, when you have a program, right? For user inputs, what you do? you say like, okay, input, print input, then the program will just on the screen, it will ask for user input, right? Similarly, you should instruct the program to read from the file. So for it to read from the file, there are 3 activities has to happen. Though you load your disk or whatever, right? You say open, right? In your CD players, you do open, you do eject. So that is kind of open and close activity, correct? So similarly, here you have to write a syntax called opening a file. So what opening a file does is it creates a connection between your file and your program. So when you save the file, what happens? It's asking you to save in a particular location, right? Say, for example, I have this word pad, right? I have written something, I've done everything. Okay. So even before I have this file, I need to open it. I don't have a program, right? I don't have anything. If I need a program, I should first open it, correct? So that is the opening of file. So this is how the file will open. Okay, so I opened a blank file. If you are telling the system where you need, which file you need to open. So you tell the system, hey, I have saved the file in this place, like this PC, like C drive, D drive. Tell me the path of the file for the program to open. That is the first step. You are establishing a connection between the file and the program using the open command. You are telling, hey, my file is in C/Nadhiya/downloads, and the file name is test.txt. Go open it. That is open. Okay. Processing. So what does processing do is like, once you open the file, right, you have file. Now you tell the program what exactly are you going to do. So I'm telling, go write name here in the first column. So you're telling the program, write name in the first column, then write age in the second column, or like write score in the third column. So now you are instructing your program to do something on this file, either write or read, calculate, whatever. So that step is processing the file. So once you're finished, so I've added here name here, I've typed in all this stuff, my age and my score. I've finished processing. Now what do? You close the file. Okay, so what closing does is it disconnects the program and the file so that the file is now no longer accessible. Why is it important to close the file? You can skip the close the file, but what happens is, say you have a program that is running, it's using this file, it's using this document1. Now, if again there is another program that somebody else is trying to run and trying to access the same file, that program will error because this file is already in use by someone else. Okay, so whether you are using it actively or not, but if the program does not close, if you try to open another instance, that might cause you an issue. So that's why once the file processing is finished, you have to close the file. Cool?
Yes. A small question.
Mm-hmm.
So the one we do in Collab. So once we run it, it's running, right? So are we supposed to close the tab, something like that? But I don't do anything like that. So
no, Collab is so the Collab Editor is something. Its inbuilt save feature is great. Like because it's mostly cloud, right? So it's on the online itself. So you don't have to save, it's auto save. So Collab Editor is different, okay?
okay.
But for file today, we'll see a different editor because that was more. This editor I'm going to show is like more easier to deal with files. So I'll just show you that editor in a bit, okay?
So one second. So so if Collab is has a compiler like behind its system,
correct,
so it erases everything like in the file, so it creates a new one for the other person. Then how does like Google or like the Google or like things like that where like everybody uses them, but like nobody like shuts the thing off, so like, but it doesn't show like an error if like the other person goes into that file at the same time.
But okay, for the collab thing, right? So you are not using a common thing. You are using your own thing. So when you create a collab, right?
Yeah.
So okay, let me show. So I open my Collab, correct? If you see, right, it's tied to my account, right?
Yeah.
So when you go to your Collab, it's tied to your account. We are not sharing Collab sessions. Okay.
Okay.
So that's how it's kept different. So the Collab I open, see the link here, there's all this ID here, right? This unique name here, that's different from me and you. So that's how this document is separated. So what you open, what you access is different from what I open and what I access. Okay, but for the sharing ones, right? So the ones that I share, remember, like I share all these. Where is it? Where is the sharing ones? Okay, last session I shared you, right? So in this case, if you see, you're able to access because I am giving you permission. I'm giving you the link and I'm telling, okay, if you have it, you could use it, you could view it, but you cannot change it. So that's the file sharing concept. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I didn't want to take files on Collab because it's kind of a different way to do it. So I'm going to use a different IDE to do it. Okay. So I'll show that in a bit before we go further. So for our logic today, for our concept of understanding files, right? Imagine file is nothing but a text file on your computer. Okay. Just to keep it very basic idea, on your computer, you have a text file or a Word file or an image, PDF, whatever it is local to your computer. We are talking about cloud concept. Clear with that assumption? So let's continue with that assumption. Okay. So we saw about opening file, close file, and everything. So there is like two types of files, I think. Okay. So there are basically two types of files. Okay. So one file is called text, another one is binary. Can anyone tell what binary file is?
A binary file is a file that's stored in a 1 or zeros.
Good. Okay. So there is like two types of files. Okay. So a text file and binary files. So any files, the whole whatever file we deal with can be classified in two types. Either it is text or binary. What is a text file is? A text file will have a data that is being encoded as a text. So they'll either apply an ASCII or Unicode conversion, and the file will be stored as text file. So what is the advantage of that is you could open that file. As a result of that, you could open the file in a text editor like Notepad, and you could view the contents. Okay. So if you open a file in Notepad and you can see it, then that is a text file because you are able to read it. Like you and me as a human can read it because it's a text edited file. It has a data stored in as a text. But there are files that is stored in binary format. So what that is? That is totally intended for the program to read. Like if you try to open this Word document in a Notepad, right, it will be all gibberish. You cannot read it. So only this MS Word application can read this Word doc data. So those files are called as binary files. You cannot open a PDF file in a different program because a PDF file has to be opened using Adobe or similar software. So when a file is written for a particular program to be able to read, they are binary files. You cannot view those contents in text editor. Okay. So the good thing about Python is Python allows you to deal with both text files and binary files. Okay. So you could have it can handle both the things. But for our session today, we will talk more about text files. Okay. So we talked about two types of files. Then, sorry about that. File access, right? So how do you access a file? So that is there. Okay. How many of you have used the old cassette tapes? Have you seen that? Anyone seen cassette players? No.
The old calculators?
No, cassette player, like the very old cassette tapes, like where you have all those songs loaded.
Oh, I think I used to have one.
Okay. So that's where the difference is. Okay, the old cassette player versus the current CD player. What's the difference? In old cassette player, say if you need song number 4, you have to fast forward until you hit song number 4. You have to just keep fast forward. You cannot directly say hit or go song 4. You cannot play that. Okay, you just have to keep playing. You just have to either keep playing or fast forward until you get that song 4. But in today versions, like all your CDs, MP3 players and all, if you want song 4, you could just click on song 4 and it opens it directly. It goes to the song 4. That's a different file reading mechanism. Okay, the first one is called sequential access file. So what sequential access means? So like the name says, you could only read from beginning to end. Okay, you have to read from beginning to end. Either you have to listen all 4 songs or just fast forward until you hit that 4th song. Okay, so that is one way of file accessing. So sequential access files is nothing but you have to read from the beginning till the end to get to the data. So the second one is direct access file. So direct access means you could read whatever you want to read, like which portion of the file you want to read, you could directly read. Okay, so this is also called as random access, because you as a user can tell which line you're going to read, which data you're going to read, which song you're going to listen to. So these are two different file accessing methods. And one more, the last concept you have to remember, we have to talk about is like file names and file objects. So every file will have a name, right? So in order for your program to know which file you are referring to, the name has to be there. You cannot save the same name in the same folder until read this. The system will not know. You have to tell in which path the file is, what is the name of the file, and what is the extension of the file. You have to tell like my file name is testdata.txt or image.jpg or my resume.docx, whatever. So so when you define the file, your file should have a file name. It should specify what type of file it is, and also you have to tell the file location. So C/user/. So in this path, I have this file. So this is how you define a relation between your program and your files. Okay. Okay. So now let's talk about so you remember, like we talked about variables, right? So in all of our things, we talked about variables. So similar to that, here we will talk about file objects. What is file object is nothing but an object that you can identify in your program that tells the which file and which location it is stored, everything. So it's kind of like an identifier for the file. So once you define a file object and say, hey, this file object A refers to this, now this link is established. So throughout your program, you can use that word A as a file object to do all your programs, all your processing logics and everything. So that is the file objects. Okay. So now let's get to the business.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if we have to access a file in Google Collab, like because like our homework questions are based on like doing like accessing files on Google Collab, well, how will we be able to do that? Like,
what homework question are you talking about?
This week's homework.
Okay, we did not finish the class yet, right? So I'm getting there. So I'm gonna show you an IDE where we are going to use it, and Collab will not support that. So yes, we are getting there. I think you are skipping ahead.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you'll have your answers in a bit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So before I go further explaining about the files, I'll show you today's IDE. Okay. I'm going to ping you this in the chat. Okay. So this is an online free IDE where you could use this for different languages. So can you guys see my screen? You can see this IDE, right? This onlinegdp.com.
Yeah.
Okay. So here, right? So when you just click on this link, online GDP, you will get this IDE. And here, choose Python. Okay. So whatever, like all the syntaxes that we learned, whatever program that we have seen so far, everything will work here too. This is another platform where you could practice instead of having to install the whole IDE. Okay. So the Python given IDE will be like local to your system. We are still talking about something in something online, but this is not Collab. This is different. So here, this week's whole class we will talk. The whole screen is different, but all the syntaxes that we have seen, all what we have learned, everything, all the programs will run here fine without any issues. So you don't have to worry about Collab versus here. For you, it's the same. You are running it in a different screen. Okay. So how to run this program? Say if you have this program written here. So you just have this run command, run, and the output will display here. Okay. Input, enter name.
So can we use like Python, Java, and a mix of them here?
Python, Java.
Like, can we use like a mix of them?
You mean can you run Java here? Yes.
Or I mean, like, can we do both languages at once?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. Because like when you select this language, this IDE is compiled to look into those particular syntaxes. You will get an error.
Okay.
So
Okay, so that's why you select it here.
does it work for like all instances? Like if I wanted to use Python and just say HTML at the same time, would it still show the same error?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
So like when he said, can you use Python and Java at the same time? Like will it still show the same error if you just used Python in a different language?
Yes. So it's similar. So here you are telling which program you are going to run. Okay, in this language drop down, you are telling which program you're going to run. If you want to run Java, you have to select Java. Now all the syntaxes is now gone. If you run it, you'll get an error. Or okay, there's a compile error here because this is not Java programming. Okay. So this gives you an option to run different programs. This software gives you that option. So for our classes, we are going to stick to Python 3 and go from there. Okay. So you do a run here, and the output or like the screen is here. So all the syntaxes stay as okay. So having said that, so let me. So we are going to talk about so we were talking about files, right? So first step in a file is how to open a file. So we are going to see how to open a file. Here. So for opening a file, similar to an object, right? So for like if you're going to define a variable string, you tell variable is a, you tell like this, right? Similarly, a file object should have a name. So you give a name, like any name for a file variable, equal to open. Then you tell the file name and the mode. So this is the syntax for file opening. You give a file a name so that you could refer this file for the whole program using this name. You give the command open, you tell the file name, then you tell the mode for opening. So what is mode is nothing but, are you opening this file to read, so if you're opening the file to just read the file, okay, you use the word R. Okay, if you're opening the file to write, you will use the word W. Okay. Say if a file is already there, you already have data in the file, and you're trying to add more data to it. Okay, that is append. So what is the difference is when you open a file in write mode, if the data already is there, it will overwrite it. Okay, so when you open a file in write mode, if the file, there is no such file, it will create a brand new file and whatever you write will write to that file. But if the file already exists, it will overwrite. Okay, if file already exists, it will overwrite. But in this case, if file already exists, it will append. It will just add it to it. At the end, it will append to the end of the file. So wherever you left last time, now this program, when it runs, it will just continue adding it. So this is like append. So these are the modes where you have to specify. File name is where you have it. So example, let's see an example. Okay. So I'm saying, say, this is an customer file. Okay. I'm giving the name for the file object as customer file, and then I'm telling the open it, and I'm giving the file name customer.txt. Okay. So for this IDE, right? So you just give the file name and it will automatically open the file name here. It saves in the default location. Okay. But if you have a path where you need this file to specifically go and save, then you give all that C user / /. But for this IDE purpose, you just have to just give the file name and this extension. The file will open in this window itself. I'll show you. So if I run, no such file exists because I'm asked it to read. Or if I do a write, see a blank file customers.txt is opened in this window. So you just use this window for processing. So now as I have opened it, now if I go and do a read, it reads. It reads, but there is no data to read, so there is no error. So if you have to load any file from your system, what you have to do is you have to upload the file to here. You have to tell which file you need to open, and that file will get opened here. Then you could have this IDE refer to that file. Understood? So we are not giving any C path or anything. We'll just give it here. You open the file here, and then this program will read it from there. Okay.
A small question.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what if we do not specify the mode? What will it default to?
I think it will be by default. It just reads.
Or just reads? Okay.
Just reads. Okay.
So to like show something from our computer, we need to like give the other part, the other things like the C colon.
No, you'll have to upload the file here. You'll have to just open it first here in this IDE. Say if I have this download, I don't know which one I could open. So if I have a file something, right?
Yeah, okay.
Just open it, okay? Just upload, select the file here. It will open here. Then you could, let me create one blank file and show you. Okay, so I have this, sample file here, okay? So now I need to use this file as an input to this program. So what I have to do is like I go here, do an upload file and choose that file here, open. So now this file is in this IDE, right? So now here, if you go and refer that sample.txt, then I say I'm opening it to write mode. It will open. It will, because it's there. Okay.
Okay. So
since I said write mode, if you see, right, the data is gone. It opened a blank file. Okay.
Another question. So like, suppose I tried to open the PDF document using Python, it does not work, right?
It will work, but for our session, we are not going to look into that in detail.
Oh, okay. Because I opened a PDF document and I see like some weird characters in there.
Yeah, because this is not a text editor, right? So that's what I told you. So if you open a PDF in an Adobe, you would see this. But if you try to open in other places, that's how you see it. But I think when you write your program to handle it, it might. But you should know, you should use the correct syntaxes that's needed for PDF documents. To
Okay.
process the PDF, whatever commands you need, you have to use that. Otherwise, it's just like you're gonna print gibberish again.
Okay.
Okay, so PDF has its own commands, like how do you open, how do you process and everything. So that's like more in depth. So it's like you're jumping like 4 legs ahead. So I just want to keep the focus to text file, because that's something we could see, right? So that I didn't want to jump that down now advanced. Okay.
Okay.
So to keep it simple, we are going to deal only about text file. We are going to see how to open a text file, how to read it, how to process it from the text file. To understand the concept. Okay. Okay. So now we have opened multiple times. So this is how you open a file. Okay. You specify which mode you want to open, whether you have to open it in read, write, or append. Somebody has asked the question, do we do these sessions homework in Collab or the site you are using right now? Okay, guys, so for the homework, I'll come to it. Okay, at the end of this class, I'll explain how this week's homework will be a different way of submission, but I'll get to that at the end. Okay, I don't want to spend time now and again at the end. So hold on to your homework questions. It would be nice if you guys could just go with the flow. Okay, forget about the homework now. So we have talked about the file opening and everything. So for writing, right? So now you have opened the file. So this customers, you have opened the sample.txt or customers file or like customers.txt, whatever the file, right? So we have opened it for write mode. So how do you write it? So now this file is ready here. This file is open blank and it's like waiting for you to write. How do you write it? Okay. So let's see the syntax for writing to the file. So from now on, okay, so once you refer this whole file to this variable, from now on, we just deal with this variable. Okay, so throughout the program, we use this file object that references this file to do our processing logic. We don't have to give like whole sample.txt, blah, blah, blah. We don't give that. We use this as a variable from now on. Okay, so to write the data. So whatever the variable name is, whatever your file variable name is, dot write, and then your string. This is the syntax. Okay. So example. So in our case, it will be this customer file dot write. So I'm telling write to this customer file. What do you want to write? Hello. I want to write this string to this customer file. Okay. Okay, so now if I execute, what happens is it opens. What is it wrong? Okay, it opened this sample.txt. So whatever I gave is now written here. Okay, so if I close it or if I delete it from here, let's run it again. So the first line, so I have so much thing here, but the first line of command is to write. It's to open the file in write mode. We'll keep this as customer.txt. So the first line of command is to write the file and to open the file, and the second line of command is to write this. So when I run the program, so the file is created in a writing mode, and whatever I asked to write is written. Any question so far?
No.
Okay. So imagine, right? So all the programs that we have written, we don't always write like this, right? So sometimes we have like, customer ID. You have a variable named customer ID, right? My customer ID is 12345. Number 12345 is the customer ID, and the customer name is Nadhiya. So you have customer amount is like $125 or whatever. So you have like this. So you have the data, right? So we always almost have data stored in a variable in some format, right? So now this data is what we would want to write it in a file. So how do you do that? Is same thing. You always refer the file using the file object or the file variable dot write, and then tell what you want to write. If you want to write this variable, yes, or you want to write the customer name, yes.
And also a small question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a customer dot append in there?
Customer dot no.
So like, so what if you would like to like add some stuff instead of like erasing the previous stuff?
So this will write one by one, right? Let me show you. So now I'm going to write it again. Right, argument must be string not. So, okay, so this, so here we saw the syntax, right? I'll get to a question in a minute, okay? So here, this syntax we saw, right? This write statement has to be a string. So when you write it to a file, the values has to be in a string. So if it is not a string, then you have to convert it to a string. Say if your customer ID is number integer, then you have to first convert it to a string and then write it to a file. Okay. So here I'm just giving everything in string for easy access. See, all the values are written in the same line, but everything is here. This is my first line. This is my ID. This is my name, and this is my amount. So the whole program keeps writing it. So what does that mean is like similar to how we do in the print, right? So you tell what has to come first and what has to go next and all that stuff, right? So you tell the program how you want to write. Okay, so if you want to write it in a different line, okay, so I want the file to write this, but I want every time it to be written in a different line, you tell if it works. Let me try. Okay, so what I'll have to do is
I think \n is supposed to be in the front.
here.
Yeah.
Try, I don't think so. It's going to say invalid character. So what I have to do is like either I have to do like this. So customer file dot write. Let me try that. Okay. So now it's printing it in the next line. So if wherever you need a break, you have to tell the system like you could either do that or I think you could do either this or this. Okay. So you could explicitly add a statement here, or you could do a string concatenation and say print this amount, also a new line character. So yeah, so now this line is like written one after everything. Okay, so you define how the file, how you have to write the file. You could write it in tab format, like how you do the prints. You could do tab, 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 and write everything like. So how could do ID. For tab, what is the command? T, right? So you do that, then you do customer name. So now it's written the same line, but with the tab. So this is like next line. This is the same line with the tab. So now you format the whole file and store it or write it however you would want to write it. So the print concept, however we formatted the output print, the same applies here, but syntax is different. You just do it here as a string concatenation or a string separation. So for clear, how to write the file?
Yes. So I have a
So
small
now,
question.
mhm.
So like, what if we already wrote some stuff in the sample text just by handwriting it, and then we come and change it over here in the main file? So it changes, then it rewrites, right?
Yes, if you
S-
open it in the so this same file, right? So we already have this written, right?
Yes.
So if you go and say so we wrote that, I'll comment this. So let me write. So I'm going to write a new line word here. Okay. So now let's see what happens. So we already this file already has data. Okay. So now I'm writing new line. When I do this, so the program finished. Now if you go see customer text, it overwrites because you open the file in write mode. So what write mode does is if file already exists, it will overwrite. If it is not there, it will create a new file, but it will overwrite. So for your example, if we need, then you have to open the file in append mode. Okay. So now this file has new line. So now I've opened this file in append mode. So when I run it, so the first new line was there. Now again, one more new line is there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now it keeps appending. Now you could tell like third line and ladder. Now if I run it, now actually I should see a third line written with old line already there. That's the mode.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so that's read, write, and append. When you need that, you do that. All right. So we have seen writing the file. So writing file is that's it. This is the whole logic of writing the file. You could write in whatever format you want to do. You can format it to float, like you could convert it to string, then you write it. You calculate the whole logic and write it. So whichever way you want to write, you write. But this the concept is same. So you use the file variable dot write command to do that. Okay. So now let's say you have already a file written, right? So this file we have it in our database stored somewhere. Let me I want this file, so let me write it. Okay. So now I have this file. Okay. So I have this file customer.txt. I'm going to clean this up a bit. So far we have this command. I'm going to open the file in write mode. So I've created this file. Okay. So I have this data. Now I'm going to show you how to read a file. This is important because say your program writes something or you are given an input from some user saying like this is a list of data something and I want your program to process it. So we should know how to actually read the file too, right? How to actually read the file from the given input. So for this, what do you do? The command is the same. The first step is same. Okay, you say like say I'm going to give a new variable input file is equal to I'm going to open the file now. The file name is same customer.txt. Then I wanted to write it, open it in a read mode because I'm not going to process the file. I'm going to read the file. I'm not going to write it. I'm going to read it. So now I open this file in a read format. Okay. So now the file is opened. So how would you read it? So now we have like line number 1, 2, or 3. So you have like almost 3 lines of data. So let's keep it simple. I just want to read the whole file and print whatever is in the file. Okay. So how do you read it is for that to read the file content. So to read the file content, what you do is like, let's say that is called, let's call it as file data, like whatever is in the file data. This is the variable. So file data is nothing but, so this is the command, okay? This is a delivered actual command in file dot read. This what it will do is it will read the it will read the file as it is, and that whatever the content is, it will be stored in file data. If I just do that, in file is not defined. Why? Sorry, not in file. This file, right? So this is my input file name, right? This is my variable name, input file name, and I'm telling it to read. So here the command was write, here the command is read. Okay, so let's run it. We have to print it to see what the data is, right? So print file data. Print file data. So now what happens? It reads from the file, whatever we have, it reads and then it writes here. Okay. So this input file dot read will actually get the whole file content, and then you could just address it using that variable and print it. Any question? So okay, any question?
No.
Okay. So this is what happens, right? So when you read, what happens now is like the data in the file is now stored in the memory variable file data. This is what I was talking in the very beginning of the session, right? So you have the data in the file, then when your program runs, now whole data is now stored in this variable, in this memory variable, and you use it to do whatever you want to do. At the end of the program, once the program is finished, this file data is gone. The data is completely gone from the memory, but it's there in the program. So next time when you need to run or do something, all you have to do is simply run, because the data is there in the, as long as the data is there in this file, it will load into your memory and then you could process it. This is the whole file processing concept. Clear?
I have a small question. So instead of creating a new variable, is it okay if we just like use the above one saying customer file equals open customer.txt comma r?
Yes, this one,
We can
right?
do that, and yeah, we can just do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you can. I just wanted to show it as it's different, so I just kept it. You could use the same variable. You could have this close and then use the same. This variable names is up to you. You could tell whatever it is. But here you have to close the file. Okay, so once we open the file, we finish writing, but then you have to close the file. So to close the file, you have to always close the file once your data processing, once your file processing is complete. Okay, now you tell close. Okay, so now this customer file is closed. Now you're opening you're opening a customer txt in another mode, but using the same variable. That does not matter.
Okay.
Okay. Customer file got closed. So once you finish reading, you have to again close the file. Only then you can use the file for subsequent processing. So we write the file here. Now we opened it and we printed the file content.
So is it okay if you like create a new file, like saying instead of customer file to read it? So if we create like an input file to read it while keeping the customer file open?
Yeah, you could do that, because now
Okay.
that file is there. No. If you are referencing the same file, you have to close it. You'll get an error, or you'll say that the file is already in use, right? This program has finished processing.
Referencing the same file. Okay.
If it's a different file, you're opening a different file for, say you're opening from one file and then writing to another file, right? You're opening from customer, then writing to sample, or if it's two different files, yes, you could close this at the very end of the program.
Okay.
If it's input file, right? You have it as an input file, then you could do file closing at the end, because you're still processing both the files.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, you're reading from this file and writing to this file. In that cases, yes, it's okay to do both the files, but then the variable has to be different, because this has to be unique to tell the program which file you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. So if you see, right, so although you did this data, right, you use this line, right, customer file or read, it reads the whole line, whole text file, right? It reads from here until end. It just reads the whole file as such. So what if you want to process the data? Like you want to read this as name, you want to read this as ID, you want to process the file based on which line you're processing, right? So you want to read just the first line, you want to read just the second line. So in that cases, what do we do? Okay, so This is file.read. This is for reading the whole file. If you want to read, this is no, some closing here. So for us, we just keep this input file as customer.txt to read mode. Wait. Okay. What was I telling? Okay. So this command reads the entire file. It will read the whole file and print it here. Okay. So what if you need to read just the first line? So what do you do is, in that case, so let me open the file again. So in that case, what it will be is like line 1 is equal to input file dot read line. So if you use this read line command, it will just read the first line of the program. If you need to read the second line, you have to call this again. Like you have to call it as like line 2 and and do the read line command again. So understood? So this one will read the whole file. This one will read first line and second line. Let me run it. Not print. Okay, so if you see, let me comment this. So we have this customer txt. Okay, so now I've opened this customer.txt file in read mode. I said read line. Okay, so it just read the first line here. This one. Okay. Then when I again did line 2, it read me the second line. If I do it again, it will now read the third line. Okay, if I just do like this print. If I use the same command again, now it will print the last line. Okay, so this is to read the whole file as it is. This is to read one line at a time. Any questions? Okay. So
Wait,
how does this?
what's the read line again?
Read line will just read one line at a time.
Okay, so we specify the line.
It will just give it. No, you read. It will start from the beginning. So it will read the first line. Then again the statement is issued. It will go to the second line. Then again
Oh,
it go. You have to.
So you cannot specify which line to read.
No, you cannot. You'll have to just look. You'll have to read from the beginning until you have to go one by one.
Okay.
You cannot define that yet. Okay. So how does it know the line breaks here? Okay, for your human eyes, when you see, you could see like this is one line and this is second line and third line, right? So how does the system know that there's a break there is? It uses this like this /n we gave, right? So when we first initially wrote the file, we use this command to do a line break, correct? So the same thing is what this read line does. So it will start reading the line until it reaches this break command. If it sees that break command, that means it's end of that line. So it will stop reading. Understood? So wherever you give this break line is what will determine first line and second line and third line. Though you are not seeing here, but at the end of all of these lines, you have this /n as a system variable. You will not see it, but at the end, when the system reads it, this is there. Understood?
Yes.
So that's how the system knows, okay, this is a line break. Okay, I hit a line break, so I've finished reading the first line. Again, when it comes, it reads 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It hit a line break, so it stops there. So this determines the reading and writing of this line break is important when it comes to read line. Okay, and we have already seen how to concatenate too, right? So when you use this less and do, you can write everything in the same line or different line. So we have seen that. What else? Okay, so I just changed it to score 1, score 2, score 3, just to identify. So here when it prints score 1, it prints score 2, it prints score 3. Okay, and appending we have already seen. If you give this mode as append, and then when you keep writing, it will just add to the file. So we have seen that too. And what else? Okay, I'll show you one more. So this one we had, right? Like say age equal to 21, then score equal to 20.5, name equal to. If you have to write this to a file, right? So I said you have to convert this to string. Okay, so how do you convert to string? I just want to know if you guys know. How do you
We can
convert?
just put this one, the quotation marks.
Okay.
Or str bracket, we can do that.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I want to know. So str of. So now I have this, right? So when I write, like, what is that customer file dot write, right? So when I do that, so I'll have this age, right? So what do I have to do is I have to do string of age. So when I do that, oh, so it's correct. So when I do that, now though this age is now an integer, when the file when it's writing to the file, it will automatically convert to string and then write string age. Yeah. So similarly, I could append, or I could do a tab and it's string of which one score. Yeah. Then I could again do concatenation and then do a tab, and I write name as it is because name is already a string. So now this whole line will be written. I'll do a text file to read. Okay, so now I have this variable age, score, and name. So I'm opening this test file.txt in write mode. Now I'm writing this. What happened? Oh, I did a T. Okay, so now 21, 20.5 David is now written, but this is all now converted as string and it's been writing. So when you read from the file, it's always a string. So if you have to process it, now you have to convert this back to integer when you have to process it for any calculations. Understood? Any questions? Okay. Okay. What is the time? What's time now?
11:04.
11:04. Okay. Okay, we'll go for a short break and be back in 5 minutes. Is that enough?
Okay.
Let's be back at 11:10. Okay. I'll show you how to do file loops processing, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, guys. See you in like 5 minutes. 11:10, we'll be back. Okay. So yeah, before we continue, I think I have the quiz results so far. So we have Kavin Karthikeyan and Apishai Kanta. So both of them have got 100 full marks in the quiz. So good job, guys. Okay, so let's continue with this file example. Then I'll show you one good file example program. Okay, so let me open an input file. Okay, so I'll show you where my input. So I have this sales.txt. Okay, so the sales.txt has like the sales data. Okay, so what we are going to do is like we are going to read from this file and just print the output and just display what the data is on the file. Okay, so this is the input file. So as usual, what you have to do first, you have to open the file, right? So sales file is equal to open. So what I'm going to show is like, so remember last time when to write every line, I just wrote like read line, read line, read line, like I had to keep repeating, right? I'm going to show that using while loop, how you could automatically read until the end of line. So you don't have to repeat that read line every single time. That is the concept that we are going to see. Okay. So first let us open the file. So it's open sales.txt. Since I'm just going to read the file, I'm opening it in read mode. Okay. So now I have to, this is open. Now I have to read, right? So how do you read it? You use the sales file variable, which is sales file dot, sorry, you get the value in a variable and then you do sales file dot read line. So what does this do? It reads the first line, correct? This reads the first line of data. Okay. So once I get the first line of data, what I'm going to do? So the data here is in what format? The data is stored as
Numbers.
The float.
Float, yeah, number or float to be specific. Okay, so it's stored in string. Okay, in the file this is stored as string, but as you when you see it, you know this sales data is a float number, correct? So what you do is like you get that value, right? So you say like amount is equal to the first line. Whatever you get in this line is the amount, correct? But this is a string, so you know that is a float. So you do the conversion here. Now this amount stores the float variable of line. So let's do the print. Okay, so if we do the print the amount, and just amount is amount. So now I have it written. Okay, let me do this close. Okay, I'm just going to keep it down. It's there. So when I run it, the program ran. It ran for the first time. It went in, it read the first line 1000, it printed back. You could even do that formatting however you want to do. What is the format? Format of amount, comma, what is it?
0.1, 0.2, sorry.
Point to F, right? So now because it did not have my 20, some formatting. The same logic. Oops, one more. Okay, so this is done. Correct? So amount is $. So we have done this. So now for the second line, I don't want to do it again. If I just do copy paste again and again, it's going to happen. Correct? So you know it will do for like 3 lines. But that's not what we are writing the program for, right? So how can we do that? This loop. So this is something similar to now what? Looping, right? So you have this data in a loop, right? You have first line, second line, third line, fourth line. So there is a possibility of looping, correct? So when it comes to loop, you could now use which loop? Either while loop or for loop. You could use both the loops to process this. Yes, go ahead.
So just to clarify, so if we put like read line, so it'll automatically read like the next line if we put read line again, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So see, when it reads first line, it will finish here. The cursor will be here. Okay. So it will be there. So when you again do the next line, it will go for the next line automatically. Yes.
Okay.
So it's a sequential access of data. It starts here and it ends here. For you to read the fifth line, you have to read all 4 lines.
Oh, okay. Is it? Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now I have to keep looping. So like I said, right? So now I have to go loop. I have to kind of loop it through from first line to the last line, right? So there is a loop now, right? First, second, third, fourth, 5. So that's a loop, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until the file length is loop. There's a possibility for loop. So how do I do it? So for the first line, you always do it. Correct. So now I want to make it as a loop. So what I tell is, how can I do? While line is not equal to blank. True, right? So when this file reads, like when it comes to the end, if there is even nothing, or if it reads the end of the file, when it reads next line, there is no data. So it's obviously going to be blank. So I'm telling, if this line item is up until it is blank, you do this. What? You convert this to amount, then print me the value. So now this is going to go and loop until the end of line. So this is nothing but kind of we are finding out the end of line concept. So end of line is when it is end of line, when there is no data in this variable that we are reading to, if that variable is empty, meaning you have reached the file end, right? There is no other data to read. So it's end of line. So now break. So if it is not end of line, go do me this. Otherwise, continue and do it. So now let's see what happens. So now if I do run, oops. What did I do wrong?
I think it's supposed to be read line instead of end line. No, I think it's supposed to be when sales file dot read line not equal to blank.
No, I'm reading this value to here. Okay. Then I'm doing line. Okay. What is it happening is, let me run again. It's printing the same value, right? It's printing 1000. It's not going to the second line at all. It's just reading the first line, meaning my loop is going in infinite loop. See, I read the first line, correct? Then I said, if it is not blank, go do this, correct? But where am I reading the second line? I did not. Anyone following me?
Oh yeah.
So I have to do this again, right? So now is when it's reading the next second line or like third line or whatever, correct? So it read the first line. It's not blank. It came in, printed my $1,000. Now it read the next line, which is 2000, correct? So it now reads the next line here, then goes and checks, is it blank? No. Now process the 2000. So now the 2000 is getting processed. Now it comes and reads the third line. So now it processes 3000, 4000, 5000. Now it reads after 5000. When it reads, there is no value here. So it will be what? Blank, correct? So now since it is blank, it will skip the whole loop. Got it? Following me? Same concept as anything. So here in our other you would have seen is like data, right? If there is data, go continue. Otherwise, come out of the while loop. So here the data is nothing but data in the file. So as long as you reach the end of file, to come out. Otherwise, keep processing. So now it's printing 1000, 2000, 3000. So without having me to repeat this statement 1000 times, I'm doing this. Okay. So this will happen for like, you could keep this for like how many ever times you need. So I've just repeated it like 21 times, right? So my program is still the same. I don't have to change a bit. It will just print. Okay. It will just read until the end of line is reached. So this is the concept. So this one and this one. So when this line reads the last line, it will be blank. So the while loop will be just broken out. Any questions? Clear? Confusing? Anyone? Understood?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a while loop way of formatting. Okay. I'm just saving this code because I have to share it with you guys, right? So since this is not in Collab, I'm going to share you this document. Okay. So you guys have it. So similar to while loop, you can do for loop too, right? So for loop is almost the same concept, correct? So how do you do? So you don't have to do this validation, right? That's the advantage of for loop, correct? So for loop will go on until the end of whatever we say is reached, correct? So how do you do is, so you don't use this read line at all in for loop, okay? So what you do is, so you open the file now, same concept. So just for our understanding, we'll keep this file lines now. So I'm going to solve the same thing using for loop, okay? So I'm opening the file as it is. So it's sales file, open sales.txt in read mode. So what do I do is, I read it, right? So for line in sales file. So what does for loop do? It just goes one by one until it reaches the end. That's the concept. So this for loop will do the whole while read, this whole read line logic, everything is handled in this itself. So it will first read the first line, then it will go to the second line, it will read the third line, it will read the fourth line. So until it reads the last line, this will continue. Very simple. So this line will handle it. Okay, if I do this, okay, what did I do now? Object is not callable. Why did I do? Sorry. Okay, very simple. So you just define a variable to get stored that line item. Then you read this object variable. So what it happens is it will iterate through for every single line. So if I'm going to have this like repeat multiple times, the program is the same. So it will now for line in sales file. So it will read line first line, it will go second line, third line. This will keep repeating. That's it. So that's how you process the whole file. Any question? So we didn't have to calculate end of file or anything because for loop will take care of it first.
No questions.
Okay. So similar logic you could do to write too, right? Say now I have this file, correct? Now I want to write this to another file. You read it from the sales file and write it to an output file. How do you do that? So let me save this first. Okay. So what do you do? So now you open this is the input file. Okay. So open input file. If you have to open an output file, so what do you do? Let me call that as just an output file itself. So output file is equal to open output.txt and open that file in write mode. Okay. So now what is happening is like for line in sales file. So when it opens, I'm printing it here. Instead of that, you could simply write what? Output file dot write. What do I need to write? This amount, right?
Line or amount, sorry.
Yeah, you could simply write line just for like calculation purpose. I'll just do line. But yeah, you could if you do line, you don't have to do a conversion. But like since I'm doing so much things here, right? So let me just simply do this. Like I have to convert this. If I'm going to write the amount, I have to convert it back to amount. This and this are the same. So it depends on what you're doing. You choose to write what you want to. If you're just simply writing it, it's line, right? You could simply use that as it is and write. That makes sense. What can I do? Let's say I'm calculating the amount is like half of the amount. Okay, I'm converting it and dividing it by 2. I'm doing some calculation or like multiplied by 2. Okay, so that now I have to write this amount here. So I'm reading this data and multiplying by 2 and then writing to the output file. So in that case, I'm doing the calculation logic using the float variable. Then when writing to the file, I'm using the string variable to do the conversion. So I ran it too soon. Okay, So what happened? It's writing, but it's writing in one single line, correct? So
Yeah.
for that, I have to do this.
\n.
Correct. I have to do the end line character. That's when the system will actually do this. So I have to also close the file. Okay. So since we have a print, it's printing here. But if you go see the output file, it's also writing. Okay. You see, I did not format anything here, right? So it's just storing a single variable. That doesn't matter. Okay. If you want to store, then you have to convert, then store it. It's up to us. But this is the idea. So you read it now, you read it, and for every line you read, you are writing it to an output file. At the end, you are closing both the input file and the output file. Got it? So we have an input file now, and the same exact multiplied version of the same file, you have it as an output file.
Is there a way to like duplicate stuff instead of doing this? No.
Duplicate meaning?
Like duplicate the same file into another file instead of like writing the for loop.
You mean copy file?
Yeah, just making like a copy. Is there any like a shortcut or anything like that? Nothing.
I am not sure. I can check that. I'll let you know the next time. Okay. There should be way to copy, but okay. Yeah, no, this is like we are not going to do this, but I just wanted to show how to read, how to write in like one single go. Okay. So this is the whole file processing logic or like file reading, writing. So you even do the calculations in the file and do that. Okay. So one more thing I wanted to show. So far you guys are clear, right? Before I show one last thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to show one more here. So this is like what is the read and write. Okay. So what I wanted to show one more is, let's go back to our previous example. Let me go to this, the for loop we were talking about, right? Let me remove this print, and I'm just simply going to print it. Okay, so I'm going to read the value from this sales and then print it. I'm going to keep it like 5 lines. Okay, clear? So I'm going to read the sales file, and then I'm going to show the output on the screen. That's it. I'm doing. Okay. So when you do that, so can you guys see a difference, like how the data is printed here versus here? Is this and this the same? Anyone?
No.
What's the difference?
There's an extra line the extra line printing out.
Yeah, okay. I think because of this editor, it's showing us extra line, but I think this is that end line, right? So if you see, right, when I select, can you see like the cursor goes from here like all the way, the screen is selected. If I select this line, right, the line is not ending here, it just goes, right? So that's what it's printing. So meaning when you are printing this line item, it not only prints you the variable, but also the next line until it reaches this whole next line character, it's printing the whole thing. It's printing here, it's printing the data along with the next line character. That's exactly what is happening. Okay. So I don't want this space. I don't want this extra line. I want this to be deleted. Like I don't want this extra line. How do you do that? Is you have that. Okay. How do you remove an extra line? How do you remove that any extra characters in a string? What do you do? How do you remove the spaces or extra characters in a string?
There's the keyword like separate SEP, something like that, I think.
That is separate, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we are trying to strip, right? We're trying to remove that. We're trying to remove that extra characters from this word.
Oh, strip R.
R strip. You're almost
R strip.
R strip. So what it does is it removes the spaces or the empty spaces at the end of the value, like end of the variable. It removes this whole extra characters. Correct. So we just use that here. So So you have this variable, right? So you have this line here, right? So it reads it. So now this line has this whole 1000 plus this extra characters. So what do? Is you do line dot r strip, and what do you tell? What do you want to remove? I want to remove that new line character. Correct. I don't want this here. So now if I do run, it's going to throw me an error because r strip is not defined. Why r strip is not? Okay. So let me get this to a value. Let me get it not equal to line.
No, it's talking about the R strip in line 6. It's not commented in line 6.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, cool. Okay. So what what now happened is, so it read that line item and it just removed that new line character. So now if you see, there is no new line characters. It just prints 1000, 2000. So all the extra spaces, extra the slash and character is now removed. Okay. So you need this for calculation or for writing purposes, because when you write now, this is going to carry over as double line, or like when you process, this might cause you an issue. So when you read, always the file will read along with that new line character. So for you to process, you just have to add this R strip so that your data is now clean. Okay. That's one extra step you have to do for processing files. Clear? Any questions?
No questions.
Okay. So let's see one more example. Okay, I think many of you have pinged me that indentation issue. Thank you so much. I'm just seeing it. Okay, okay. So we'll just see one program before we go and discuss the homework program. So we have, what is time now? 12:30, 12:35. Just a second, guys. Okay. Okay, so what is the example I wanted to show is, so we have seen this random module. Remember, anyone? We have this random module, right? So what that is, that does, like random dot randomnet. What does this do?
It generates a random number.
It generates a random number, correct? So now what we are going to do is, we are going to create a program. Let me do this. So this is our first step. Okay, I'll put the problem statement. Okay. So what we are trying to do is, we are going to create a program that writes a series of random numbers to a file. Okay. So each random number should be in the range of 1 to 100. So the user should tell you how many random numbers your file has to hold. So we'll just do this first piece first. So we are going to generate the random number. We are going to get how many numbers you want from the user. So far, what we have seen in the previous classes is, you will just display that, right? So instead, we are going to store that random number in a file. Instead of displaying it as output, we are going to store it in the file. Okay. So what we do, so first thing we are going to do is, you have to
Import it.
Yes, you have to import the random module. Okay. So then let's create the main function just so that it'll be easy to call. So first thing what they have asked is
User input.
User input. So it should be, what am I asking? I'm asking how many number of number count, right? How many times you want, how many numbers you want, that's what I'm asking. So int, so then I tell, I'm doing a conversion because the user input is a string, but I want it as a number, okay? So I'm doing the conversion. So int input, enter number of, what do you call it?
Random numbers to appear.
Okay, so we'll do this. So I have this habit of doing the program. Okay, so whenever I have a logical break, I try to run it. So that way I don't write 1,000 page of code and then try and figure out where the problem is. Okay, this was easy, so I just ran it. So this is correct. So I'm giving it 5. Okay. So now what I need is I have to write this to a file, right? So I'm going to open the output file. Okay, so we could call that as like random file is equal to open random.txt in write mode.
A small question.
Sure.
So like, what's the mode for append? Is it A?
Yay.
A, okay.
Okay. Yeah, you just give a here. Okay. The random.txt.write. So now I have the file. Okay. So now what I should do, I should how do you create a random number? That is very this syntax, right? Number is equal to, so random module dot which function allows you to give that range. So here you said like I want the range to be between 1 and 100.
I think it's randint.
Randint. So it says my first number is 100 and it can be until 100. So give me a number. Print this number. Okay, I'm just gonna show here. So I just need 3 random numbers. It just printed me 1. Why? I just did this 1. Now I have to do the for loop, right? So how many times do I want to do? Repeat it.
The number of times in the number count.
In the number count. So for how many times the user says, do this. Repeat it. So run. So I'm saying 3 times. See for count the number count. Number, print number, 1. Int object is not right.
It's supposed to be str of number count, I think, for 13.
str of number count.
It's int is not iterable, right? That's why.
Okay.
No, for line number 13 in the for loop.
Oh, here, right? I could use the range function. Right. So I could use the range function to go for it. So I said 3, that's a limit, right? So I have to use the range function to do that looping, right? I cannot simply use it. I have to tell, if I say range, now it will start from 0, 1, 2 up until this number count. Okay, so it gave me a 3 random numbers. So now our program goal is we have to write it to a file. So what do? I already opened this file here. So I simply, instead of printing it here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do random file dot write string of number. Correct? So this is an integer. I'm converting it to a string and then writing to this random file. Here. So I'll do 5. Perfect. So it's all written as one big text. So I need that. What is that?
\n.
\n. Okay, so I'll do 10 numbers. And the file now has 10 numbers. So this is all a random number. Clear? So we are not simply reading or we are not simply writing anything. We are doing the calculation here. We are finding a random number. We are getting how many numbers you want to write from the user. And based on that, we are looping. And then every time a random number is generated, we are writing that random number to a file. And finally, we need to close that. Any questions? So that is it. So now it will be like 6 if I give. So now this random file has 6.
We don't need the function right there, right? Define main function. We can just
You
do it
don't.
without that.
You don't need it. You don't need it.
Okay.
You could simply do that, or you could call this as like write file function. Okay. So now you can have your main function. The main function I'm calling a write file function. Okay. All the same. Oops. What did I do?
There should be brackets after file.
So it's the same. Okay. So now we have finished this first portion, correct? So where we have this creating a file with the random numbers. So the second portion for it is what the question I have is, this is first. This is my first question. Okay. So second piece to it is, so I want to read whatever is the series of random numbers from random file and calculate the total. That is my second program. Okay. So now I have this function where I have already where it writes to the random file. Now I need the second program or second function which will read this whole file and calculate me a total value of that. So how do you do? So I'll create one more function. I'll call that as calculate. Okay, just to keep the name. So first, what I have to do is I have to now read the file. Correct? I'm going to copy paste. In this case, I'll call it as. I can use the same name, but just to differentiate, I'm going to say input random file. Now I'm opening that file in a read mode. So then what do I do? I have to now read it. Correct. So for that, what is the command?
For loop.
Or line in this. So whatever I want to do. Correct. So I'll do print line just. So, but here this line now has what? Has that end of line characters, right? I have to remove it. See, here whenever you write, by default you add this end of line character. Correct. Similarly, when you read, by default you have to do that. You have to remove that end of line character, just like that. So I have removed it, right? So print line.
No, the spelling for R strip is incorrect.
R strip is okay. So I want to, what do I want to do? I want to calculate, correct? So calc is equal to, what do I need to do? Integer of, I think I should do this, right? Value equal to, okay. So what I'm doing is I'm calculating the value. I'm getting the line value, removing the end line character, also converting it to an integer. Now calc is equal to calc plus value. Okay, because this is going to be a running total. Calc equal to 0. I initialize with 0. Now I'm going to keep adding it until the end of line. So once it is finished, I'm going to say print total is clear. Any questions here?
Wait, is it supposed to be like string of calc? No, is it okay if it's yeah?
When you print, you don't have to. When you
Okay.
concatenate is when you need to.
Okay.
Okay. So the print will print any number as it is. There will be no formatting, but it will just print as it is. Okay. So so now I have this write file. I have to call this calculate function next. Okay. So let me run it. Hopefully no errors. So I'll give 5. Okay. So I did 5. So the file created this numbers 19, 24, 56. So it's like, and now it created the total is 247. So it went in here, it did one by one, and then it printed. I could just do a print so that you guys can see what each line is and then the total. Okay, so these are the 6 lines it read from this file: 62, 36, 64, 80, 76, and it calculated the total. So we are doing both here. So first function, we are writing a file, we are creating a random numbers and writing to the file. In second function, we are reading that random file and then doing a calculation, like you're just summing up the whole value and then printing. This is just one plain simple logic. You can do anything with it. Just to show you, I'm just doing a calculation of all values. You could do average, you could find like what the median is, what the anything, any data analysis you would like to do, you could do in this. But this is how you process it. The syntax is this. What you do once you get this value, what you do with it is up to the program need. But for any file calculations, this is how you go about it. Any questions? Guys, understood?
Yes.
Okay. Let me think. What do I? I'm just seeing if I have to do it. Tell you guys anything else. Okay, I think this is it about all the file processing logic. Okay, so now going back to the homework question. Let's do the quiz first and then go to the homework questions. Okay. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. The first question, you can use the dash operator to determine whether a key exists in the dictionary.
In
Option B. Okay. Second question, you can use dash to create an empty dictionary. Which one?
curly braces.
Yeah. Option A. Number 3, the dash returns all of a dictionary's keys as dictionary view, which is a type of sequence.
Keys.
Keys. Good job. Keys. Fourth one, the dash method returns a randomly selected key value pair and removes that key value pair from the dictionary.
Pop item.
Pop item. Correct. Option C. Fifth one, the dash method returns the value associated with the specified key. If the key is not found, it returns a default value.
Pop.
Pop. Good. Sixth one, this set method removes an element but does not raise an exception if the element is not found.
Discard.
Discard. Correct. This operator can be used to find the union of two sets. Which is union?
A.
A.
A. This is pipe sign symbol is the union. Difference?
Minus.
Minus. Option C. Correct. Intersection?
B.
B. Correct. The ampersand symbol is the intersection. And symmetric difference?
Square. Yeah, square.
To the power of
The gas symbol.
D.
The D one. Okay, that's with the Q's. Good job, guys. Okay, let's see the homework. Okay. So we'll go about the questions and then I'll tell you how to submit. Okay. Okay. So the first one is golf data. So I need a program that will read each player's name and golf score as a keyboard input and then save these records in a file named golf.txt. Okay. So you will ask the user to say how many players data you need to enter. Then you just get that data and store it. Okay. That is the first step. Second step is then you just read it and then display each of the player's name and the score. Okay. Any question?
Wait. So I didn't. The first one is like we have to create some random values for the
You have to input you have to ask the user like how many players data you need to enter. Okay, if the user says 5, you have to get 5 names and 5 scores and just store it.
Oh, okay. So dictionary values, something like that.
Yeah, anything. Could use anything
Okay.
to get it, but to store it in the file. Okay. Then once
Okay.
you write to the file, option B is you just have to read from that file and display the value. Like the score for player 1 is this, player 2 is this kind of.
Okay.
So that is 1 second. That's the first question. Okay. Then
The second one, I think we already did that as session 6, I think, as
yes,
homework.
correct. So we already did that as session 6, right? But in that case, what you did is
I think
you got the sorry.
so for in this one, do we have to like so they give an input and then it stores it in a file and then it'll apply like the vowel and constants thing to it, so it'll get so whenever the next person types in an input, it should find that word and like bring it like say how much vowels or constants.
No. So what you have to do is first one is you have to have a function that will get string. Okay, you ask the user to input a string. Okay, so once that user inputs a string, I want you to store that string as a file. So in previous programs, you would just store it in a memory variable and then do the calculations, correct? But here, once the user gives the strings, you just have to keep entering it. So if the user wants to enter 5 strings, you have to get the input 5 times and store all the five sentences or 5 strings into a file. Okay, so at the end of the first program, there should be a file having all sentences stored, all strings stored. Clear?
Okay.
Then the second function now will read from that file. You have to read from that file line by line and then tell me like how many vowels and consonants are there in that. Like in every line you could do and then total you could do. Either way is good. So in line 1, you have like 5 vowels and 6 consonants. In line 2, you have like 8 and 7. So total number of consonants and vowels in file is. So you just need to display that data at the end of this program.
Okay.
Clear? So instead of memory, I'm asking you to do it. You have store it in file and then retrieve it from the file and then show me the values.
So like you like create 2 files. First one for storing the value input and second one for like the doing the process.
No, second one you just read and show it. I'm saying read from the file and display.
Okay.
In both the cases, you read from the file that you just created in the first program.
Okay.
In the first you created, you save the file, right? You create a file and then you finish it. Then now read that same file. Even here, read from the same file where you stored your data and then do the processing. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't create a different file. So it's like 2-step process. Create it, then now read it and do something else for me. So I just gave the same example because I just want you to see how the memory version and file version works. You could start, you don't have to start from scratch, right? You already have the program, get that and start going from there. I need it to be stored as file and the output as like this. So far clear? The questions are clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this week's homework, right? So like I said, like, okay, the Collab link is not going to work, right? You cannot do the program in Collab, correct? But what you can do is, so you're going to use this online GDB tool, okay? So you have seen me doing this, right? Control A, Control C, or like, right, select all, right click, copy. Okay, either way. So do a right click, do a select all, the whole program will select. Imagine this is your file, this is your output program, right? I finished. So this one is my first function that writes, second function that reads. I'm finished with this programming, correct? So when you run this program, this is going to run, correct? So once you are at this stage, now your program is all ready. What I want you to do is, I want you to do right click, select all, copy, and then paste it in your Collab link. Okay. So instead of you writing the program here, you are just going to create a collab, copy it from there and paste it here and then submit like usual. Okay. So now your program is here. The only thing is it will not be able to run here but your program will be here. Just select and then now share this collab link in the document. So we will, when we evaluate, we will copy from here, but run it in this online GDB and we'll give you the marks. It's an extra step, but that's the only way to do for this file version.
Wait, isn't there a way we can save the online GDB thing we do? There's an option like save up there.
Okay, but you have to create an account and everything. I'm not sure how many of you have accounts or all that such things. So that's why, like, now you have to do one more step of creating. Just for this one session, you have to create, right? So.
Oh, only this one session we're gonna use this one?
Yeah, just for file processing, we are gonna use this. So I think we're not gonna use it. So I would rather just use it, but I don't want to create one account and everything. Okay, this is easier. So just go copy and paste it in your collab and then submit like how you actually do, right? You give that collab link in that Word document and submit, right? So give me that. One more thing I would need is your file output, your file screenshot, and your output screenshot here. I want that in the Word document. See,
okay.
the code I need you to copy this code and paste it in the collab. Give me the collab link. Then just give me a screenshot like this. I just need screenshot of this output in your Word, wherever your Word is. So you have this. How do you submit? So if you take this, I need the collab link. Okay, give me the collab link here. Then screenshot of output. Paste the screenshot here. Then I also need the screenshot of the file that got generated. Okay. So I need this screenshot so that I know you guys the program has worked. It did not fail. Okay. So now I see I got the output file here. I got the program output here. I have the program code in the collab link. Okay. This is for question 1. Similarly for question 2, repeat the same.
Okay.
Just tell me this is question 1 and question 2. So that way at least I could refer this and it will be easier for our corrections. Any questions? Just this one time, guys. Sorry, this is kind of a bit one more step, but I didn't want to skip the file for this technical difficulties. Any question with the homework?
No.
Submission? Okay, so just to recap. So do your homework here as it is in the online GDB. Copy the code, paste it in the collab, give me the link, plus screenshot of this output window and your file output, the file page, file screen, whatever, and then upload the Word document. All right. Yes, we still submit in collab, right? Yes, your code should be in collab. Yes, your what is it? Your this whole code should be in collab for me too. I'll update the homework instructions with this whatever I said, but I think you guys follow me, right? I've explained it enough. I'll update the homework sheet again. That's not a big deal, but that's it. So one more extra step, guys. That's it. Okay. Instead of writing it the code in collab, you're going to write the code here and paste it. Okay. Yes, Shravya. I'll update the homework instructions with these screenshots. Can we run it in a different program as long as we put the correct code in collab? What do you mean by that, Pranil? Pranil, what do you mean by different program? You mean different IDE?
Yeah, like can we use a different IDE as long as we put it into Collab?
Yes, you could use any IDE you want. Yes, just the Collab is going to be just a place where I'm going to retrieve the source code. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
But I need the screenshot of the output, screenshot of the file. Okay. Okay, Sugita. So we are not using Collab. We are not using Collab to run the program. Like I said, we are using the Collab to send me the output, to send me the program. Okay. Because if you paste this program in any other way, like if you paste it in Word or anywhere, see all the alignment and all, right? So now if I copy paste, it might give me an error. That's the reason I'm asking you to paste this code in the Collab. Collab is going to be just like a tool for me to read your code. Understood, guys? Okay, so for this homework session, right? So if you guys have any trouble like uploading it or like copy pasting or like if you're having anything, please message us. Do not wait until next class to tell me that you had problem uploading the homework. Okay. So if you have any question, if you have any trouble uploading the homework or like copy pasting, or if you're not sure, please message us then and there. Don't wait until the last day to ask these questions. I'll update the homework sheet with all these instructions as clear as possible. Having said that, that's it for today, guys. So if you have any questions, anyone? All good?
Yep.
Okay then. So you guys enjoy, have a good rest of the day and have a good weekend. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. If you have any questions, you can email info@agoramastercode.org or comment below and we'll reply back. Maybe. And if you want to see practice things or anything about us, you can visit our website, which is basically the end of the email, but without the info and the end. So bye!